want to see Terence fight Canelo, but I would love to see him fight anybody in that division, because even up to 154, because I think he's the cream of the crop.
Well, why not Canelo? Is that just a little too much?
That's just too big. It'd be like Canelo fighting the Charlo. He just, even though he's got a lot of talent, it's just not enough size. You got to remember, Canelo has been fighting at those weights for the last, say, 3 or 4 years. He's been sparring with guys that size. He's been working out with guys that size. He's been so his strength level has risen to that level, to where those guys are at. Terence has been sparring with 47-pounders, 40-pounders, 54-pounders maybe once in a while. So his strength level is at that level. There's no way that in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months you're going to gain that strength to be able to handle somebody. And I'm not saying early it may be a fight, early it may be interesting because of the speed and because of Canelo being slower because he's at a heavier weight. Because the guys that he fights at a heavier weight, you kind of assimilate your speed to their speed. But Terence will be 3 or 4 rounds before Canelo figures out what he's doing, just like what it took Golovkin to figure out Brook early in the fight. Brook was a little quicker because he was a smaller guy. But once Canelo figures that out 3 or 4 rounds, then I think Canelo will be just too big, in my opinion.
It's happened. You can't really hate on it. But I'm excited for that. I know Canelo is so big, so strong, and I think he'll be just too big. I mean, weight classes matter for a reason.
Terence Crawford, Canelo. It sounds like it's going to happen. Terence here is looking in great shape. Just what's the latest? What can you tell me?
Once we get to that bridge, we're gonna shock the world.
What weight is ideal for Terence to come in at that? Obviously,
we can't give too much out. Can't give too much out. I gotta get to the gym, man.
Good to see you.
Mucha gente, como Abel Sánchez, dice que la verdad es muy pequeño un crapo.
Fíjate, yo creo que trae una planeación diferente, está haciendo buenas cosas. La verdad, una condición así aquí en Los Ángeles tenía años que no se veía, pero hay que ser realistas, son 3 divisiones abajo. En el peso, ya cuando sea el peso, van a ser 5 o 6 divisiones, el Canelo va a estar recuperado. Podría ser que Crawford tiene la habilidad de poder pelear bien los 12 rounds, que nunca lo toquen, pero al final del día pues no va a ser una pelea de choque competitiva como debe ser.
What do you think would happen if Canelo fought Terence Crawford?
I'm going with Terence Crawford. Big weight jump, a dangerous fight, but somebody's got to prove to me that they can break Terence Crawford's will and that he can't figure it out against you. It ain't no disrespect toward Canelo, but I've said this the last couple of years. I have not been against Terence Crawford against nobody right now. You got to show me that you can beat him. But I don't think we're gonna get that fight.
Did you have a chance to speak to Canelo about that? First off, how do you think Canelo and Crawford is gonna play out?
That's what it's been talking about. They've been talking about it. I mean, listen, they just got to win their fights first, and then we'll see what happens then. You know what I mean? If they're going to fight before they fight each other, I think that's the smartest thing for both parties. And then we see how they look, and we go from there. Because nowadays, in the modern day era, you're only as good as your last fight.
That was the guy. It sounds like he might be facing Crawford in September, which kind of puts a little bit of a weight on some of the belts. I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I think that's a great fight. Terence Crawford, a hell of a fighter. Hall of Famer for sure. Canelo, another Hall of Famer. I see Turkey, the guy down there. He's making these fights happen for the big money. I can't do nothing but respect their grind. They put the work in, and now they're here making those big fights. I'm patient, bro. I wait my turn. Ain't no rush, but I'm definitely looking for all the top guys in the division. I'm not taking those easy fights. I'm ready to keep learning and keep growing. That's what it's about, and eventually I'll get to those fights.
How was Floyd and Terence being in the gym with Eddie Hearn and all that?
It was cool, but it's kind of regular to me. I got a good relationship with both of them, and I don't look at them like how everybody else look at them. I look at them like big brothers.
I mean, I know you're kind of probably used to it, which is pretty nice. But are they telling you stuff while you're working in there, or are they giving you advice? What's going on when they're there?
Yeah, they telling me stuff. They're telling me a lot of stuff. I appreciate them. I take their advice and I'm gonna keep working.
Man, Terence looks like he's maybe facing Canelo. I know you and TC are brothers, man. How does TC get it done?
I think he just stay outside.
Good evening, fight fans.
Box him all night and just make it an easy fight.
Que Canelo y Crawford van a pelear en septiembre. Es un gran pelea. Crawford está subiendo como 14 libras, algo así. Pero muchas personas están diciendo que va a ser cerca la pelea. ¿Qué piensas de esa pelea?
Yo creo que puede ser una buena pelea. Eso de
que suba relativamente 14 libras o algo así, pues realmente uno baja para pelear, ¿no? Entonces no es como que quizá va a bajar un poco menos, pero igual le digo, si yo siempre digo, las peleas no son fáciles ninguna y no hay ventaja, los dos tienen 2 manos, 2 pies, 2 ojos, entonces es igualdad de circunstancias. Pues ahora a ver quién es el mejor, es lo que hay que esperar.
You know, your team, Team Crawford, the rumor is Canelo versus Crawford, man. How does TC get it done against Canelo?
I feel like he's going to outbox Canelo, man. Canelo is a great fighter, legendary fighter, you know, generational talent, you know. But Crawford is too at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Crawford, I feel like the better boxer at the end of the day. He got faster feet. He faster, period. And I feel like he's going to get the job done. It's spectacular for him.
Well, what's the last thing you beat Crawford in? I know you guys are always competing in some game. What's the last thing you won?
Basketball.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You got him in basketball?
Yeah. Nah, I can't fuck with him in ping pong. I can't.
Sounds like he's going to face Crawford, you know. As a smaller guy, right? How do you beat a big guy like Canelo? Like, how does Crawford have to beat Canelo?
You gotta be smart. Smart, fight him. Don't stay there, because if Canelo catches him, I think he's gonna hurt him. But you gotta fight him, box him, and if he boxes him and he don't get caught, he's gonna win.
It's a lot of weight, right?
Yeah, because Crawford, he throws a lot of punches. He's a good fighter. So
Canelo's looking at Terence Crawford. You know, Terence Crawford did struggle a little bit at 54 against a very kind of tricky, you know, guy in Israel Madrimov, a great fighter, really, in Israel Madrimov. But, you know, didn't have, like, obviously his knockout streak ended with that fight, right? Because he had a long knockout streak prior to that. And now we're asking this man to go up, you know, 14 more pounds, 2 more divisions to fight, you know, one of the top, at least 3, maybe top 5 pound for pound guys, you know, who doesn't look like he's slipping too much. You know, I mean, people say that Canelo kind of slows down a little bit, which maybe he does, but it's also, you know, maybe he doesn't want to go for the finish, right? He's already kind of won the fight. So I don't know, like, stylistically, what does Crawford have to do, and can he kind of overcome those 14 pounds and get a victory over Canelo?
Well, when you think of Terence Crawford, I mean, if you're thinking he started at 135 as a professional, 168's a big way up from there. You know, that's a lot of weight to go up. And one of the things that's heartening to him is when we see the two together, while Canelo is much denser and a stronger man, Crawford doesn't look like the smaller person. You know, he's got some height and reach, and let's face it, the way he wants to win this fight is not by being on the inside battling in the trenches with Canelo. It's by being not necessarily moving around the ring all the time, which Crawford doesn't do anyway, but it's being at distance and landing combinations, controlling the distance. So a victory for Crawford is going to look like Canelo Alvarez, who can have lulls in his fights, right? We know he can give rounds away, and he frequently does. And then we know Canelo sometimes fades a little bit later in fights. Sometimes he fades later in fights, not just like in a Brazil fight where he's been punished a little bit, but even in fights that he's doing fairly well in, but all of a sudden he'll slow down a little bit. And now he's the older version, and as you point out, there's been some diminution in his overall ability and competitive, you know, ability to win fights. But so Crawford has to bank rounds. Now, to bank rounds against Canelo, who, for whatever reason, however we want to look at him in terms of how hard it is to bank rounds against him, we can come up with all the reasons why we think that's so. If you're going to bank rounds against him, you better throw enough punches to do it. And Terence Crawford is not a volume puncher so much. He's going to have to up the level of punches that he throws, I think, and lands. And then his mission is to bank rounds, and at the end of the day, probably win a decision. I mean, Canelo Alvarez has a monster big chin, and it's unlikely Crawford will hurt him.
And, you know, maybe Crawford in September. I really want to talk about the Crawford potential matchup, because he's 3 divisions smaller, you know, 21 pounds. Yeah. You are a, you know, smaller guy who's sparred, just, you know, kind of lightly sparred with Canelo. You know, I mean, what do you tell a Crawford who's trying to, you know, jump up?
I respect Crawford because he's looking for greatness. You know, he's got that Jordan mentality. Mm-hmm. Every time very few times I've had a chance to talk to him, and I can see that Mamba mentality, that Jordan mentality, the Crawford mentality. He's looking for that greatness. Got nothing but respect for Crawford. He's one of my favorite fighters, the best pound for pound in this era right now. But he's looking out to call out Canelo. There's reason why there's divisions. Those shots, could affect, but. You never know. I respect greatness. I respect Teofimo calling out Crawford. I respect all those tough fighters that are willing to go up a division to fight them. I wouldn't go up 2 divisions to fight, someone like
maybe like a Teofimo or
like
Gervonta or somebody, right? Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be smart. I'm too small, and it's just there's a reason why there's weight classes. But that's the reason why you respect somebody like Crawford. That's the reason why you respect someone like Teofimo. You gotta love them as fighters, even as persons, because they're also human beings who are looking for greatness. So nothing but respect to them.
Having been in the ring with Canelo, what does Crawford have to kind of look for or avoid, or what kind of tips do you give a
I would just encourage Terence to be himself. As I said before, from the inside, mid-range, outside, southpaw, right hand, moving left, moving right, he can do it all. So I would encourage him to stay relaxed, go in there, have fun, have a good camp, and let the dice roll.
Like you said, Diego's number 1 in the WBO, right? But looks like Canelo has other pressing business, right? It seems like Crawford. I know you're kind of close to Turkish and all that. I don't know. Does it seem like that's what's going to happen?
I think His Excellency definitely wants Crawford against Canelo, and he's got a very good success rate. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's going to be interesting to see if that fight gets over the line. I don't, a lot of people asking me, who's Canelo going to fight in May? I have no idea. Maybe he sits, but it's 2 generational greats. Be a great fight if it happened.
A lot of people were critical of Crawford against Madrimov, your fighter as well. Was a close fight. Madrimov, was made it very close, and that's still 14 pounds south.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like it's a massive physical disadvantage for for Crawford. But don't forget, he's not just coming up from 54. He's coming up from 47, 40, 35. I mean, let's put this into perspective. If Terence Crawford beats Canelo Alvarez at 168, he would have come up over 30 pounds, right, from his first world championship. He'll not only be a 5-division world champion, but he would have jumped 2 weight classes to do it, and he would have beaten one of the great fighters of our generation. And that's what Crawford's all about. Well, he's made his money, and he wants money, but he really wants to just create a legacy beyond expectation, and that's the kind of fight that would do it. I think the style is all wrong for Canelo at this stage in his career, but I think the size is too much for Crawford.
What do you mean by the style? Just kind of
movement,
right?
Like Canelo, he's getting old. Like his knees and everything, they're not what, and that's why the last couple of fights he fought Berlanga and he fought Munguia, because he wanted a fighter. When he boxed Charlo, he hated the way Charlo moved. He was like, he doesn't want that kind of fight. He wants you to come at him, and and that's what Munguia did. That's what Berlanga did, and Crawford won't do that. He won't be able to do that because he won't be able to take the hammer.
Right. Yeah.
So he'll move a lot, and that will be awkward and difficult for Canelo.
It's going to be interesting if we get it for sure. It sounds like we're going to get Canelo versus Crawford, which is kind of incredible. Crawford did struggle, first moving up to 54. Now we're asking him to move up another 14 pounds. But boxing is littered with stories that guys have done it, right? I mean, is this going to be one of those stories?
I can't see it. I love Terence Crawford. I'm the biggest Terence Crawford fan in the world. I curated his career on HBO for a while. I think he's a spectacular all-around talent. You're talking about bridging a 21-pound weight gap. And again, Canelo has the best punch resistance of anybody for his weight in the sport. I don't believe Crawford can hurt him. And if you're fighting somebody who can't hurt you, it gives you a lot of extra options in there. I'd have to favor Canelo in that fight too.
Jim, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Wow. He may be old.
You think Canelo's too old for Benavidez?
Catch people like that on their prime. But what you don't want to do is get in the ring with him, though, because he turns into a monster when he gets in the ring. So you don't want to poke the bear.
Is Canelo, you think, a little too long in the tooth for Benavidez, you think?
Canelo the shit. I don't go against him at all. All my Mexican friends love calling me when he fighting a black fighter trying to bet me. It's not racist, it's the truth. All you motherfuckers, y'all love calling me when Canelo fighting against a black man. You want to bet, Holmes? Holmes, you want to bet? Fuck it, let's bet. But if it's Mexican on Mexican, who y'all gonna take?
They're talking about he might fight younger Big Charlo next, and then Terence Crawford for his next 2 fights.
Crawford the one. Now that's Bud. Got Bud Crawford? That's where I got my money at. I'm betting on Bud.
You got Bud?
Motherfucking Bud. Nebraska, you hear me? Go with the underdog. Speaking of the underdog, it's on Amazon Prime right now. We'll check it out.
There it is. Appreciate you, Snoop. Thank you, sir. Thank you.